According to a survey by the Global Research Society and the Institute for Social Research, about 51% of the world's population believe in a god or supreme being. Interestingly, in that same survey, it was revealed that 51% also believe in reincarnation. While I personally don't believe in a god or reincarnation, I'll still be the first person to admit that we as human beings don't know everything about the nature of reality and existence. As a result, while I don't necessarily believe in reincarnation, I also wouldn't explicitly claim that reincarnation does not happen. In this video, we'll take a look at some shocking true stories of children who seem to have surprising specific memories of a past life. A man named Dr. Jim Tucker with the University of Virginia School of Medicine has conducted some groundbreaking research on the topic of children who report memories of previous lives. Here's an article on the University of Virginia website on that topic. Some young children, usually between the ages of 2 and 5, speak about memories of a previous life they claim to have lived. At the same time, they often show behaviors, such as phobias or preferences, that are unusual within the context of their particular family and cannot be explained by any current life events. These memories appear to be concordant with the child's statements about a previous life. In many cases of this type, the child's statements have been shown to correspond accurately to facts in the life and death of a deceased person. Some of the children have birthmarks and birth defects that correspond to wounds or other marks on the deceased person, whose life is being remembered by the child. In numerous cases, post-mortem reports have confirmed these correspondences. Older children may retain these apparent memories, but generally they seem to fade around the age of 7. These young subjects of these cases have been found all over the world, including Europe and North America. For the past 20 years, Dr. Jim Tucker, now the director of the Division of Perceptual Studies, has focused mainly on cases found in the United States. His book, Return to Life, offers accounts of very strong American cases of young children who remember previous lives. In this book, Dr. Tucker writes about the now well-known cases of James Leninger, a young boy who had verifiable past life memories of being a World War II pilot, and Ryan Hammonds, who had verifiable memories of being a Hollywood extra and talent agent. Next, let's take a look at a Reader's Digest article written by Laura Kahn that includes some mind-blowing stories of children who apparently remember their past lives. "When I was your age, I changed your diaper," said the dark-haired boy to his father. Ron looked down at his smiling son, who had not yet turned 2. He thought it was a very strange thing to say, but he figured he had misheard him. But as baby Sam made similar remarks over the next few months, Ron and his wife, Kathy, gradually pieced together an odd story. Sam believed that he was his deceased grandfather, Ron's late father, who had returned to his family. More intrigued than alarmed, Ron and Kathy asked Sam, "How did you come back?" "I just went whoosh and came out the portal," he responded. Although Sam was a precocious child, he'd been speaking in full sentences from the age of 18 months. His parents were stunned to hear him use a word like portal, and they encouraged him to say more. They asked Sam if he'd had any siblings, and he replied that he'd had a sister who turned into a fish. Who turned her into a fish? Some bad guys. She died. Eerily enough, Sam's grandfather had a sister who'd been murdered 60 years earlier. Her body was found floating in San Francisco Bay. Ron and Kathy then gently asked Sam, "Do you know how you died?" Sam jerked back and slapped the top of his head as if in pain. 1 year before Sam was born, his grandfather had died of a cerebral hemorrhage. Among the UVA case studies is the story of an Oklahoma boy named Ryan. A few years ago, the 4-year-old woke up screaming at 2 in the morning. Over the preceding months, he'd been pleading with his bewildered mother, Cindy, to take him to the house where he'd lived before. In tears, he'd beg her to return into his glittering life in Hollywood, complete with a big house, a pool, and fast cars. "That was so fabulous," he once said. "I can't live in these conditions. My last home was much better." When Cindy went into her son's room that night, Ryan kept repeating the same words, "Mommy, I'm so homesick," as she tried to comfort him and rock him to sleep. He was like a little old man who couldn't remember all the details of his life. He was so frustrated and sad, Cindy says. The next morning, she went to the library, borrowed a pile of books about old Hollywood, and brought them home. With Ryan in her lap, Cindy went through the volumes. She was hoping the pictures might soothe him. Instead, he became more and more excited as they looked at one particular book. When they came to a still of a scene from a 1932 movie called Night After Night, he stopped her. "Mama," he shouted, pointing to one of the actors, who wasn't identified. "That guy's me. The old me." I was shocked, Cindy admits. I never thought that we'd find the person he thought he was. But she was equally relieved. Ryan had talked about his other life and been so unhappy, and now he had something to go on. Although neither Cindy nor her husband believed in reincarnation, she went back to the library the next day and checked out a book about children who possessed memories of their past lives. At the end of it was a note from the author, Professor Jim Tucker, MD, saying he wanted to hear from parents of kids with similar stories. Cindy sat down to write him a letter. Close to 3/4 of the cases investigated by Dr. Tucker's team are solved, meaning that a person from the past matching the child's memories is identified. In addition, nearly 20% of the kids in the UVA cases have naturally occurring marks or impairments that match scars and injuries on the past person. One boy who recalled being shot possessed 2 birthmarks, a large, ragged one over his left eye and a small round one on the back of his head, which lined up like a bullet's entrance and exit wounds. In the case of Ryan, the boy longing for a Hollywood past, an archivist pored over books in a film library until she found a person who appeared to be the man he'd singled out, Hollywood agent Marty Martin, who made an unbilled cameo in Night After Night. After Cindy spoke with Dr. Tucker, he interviewed Ryan, and then the family contacted Martin's daughter. She met with Dr. Tucker, Ryan, and Cindy, and along with public records, she confirmed more than 50 details that Ryan had reported about her father's life, from his work history to the location and contents of his home. Cindy felt tremendous relief when she was told that her son's story matched Martin's. She says, "He wasn't crazy. There really was another family." These stories are truly incredible, and I'm glad that a qualified academic like Dr. Tucker is the one investigating this phenomenon, as his background certainly makes it easier to take this whole thing seriously. The fact that Dr. Tucker and his team are able to find a verifiable, matching identity that fits the child's past life claims in the majority of cases is absolutely amazing to me, especially because many of those kids have physical traits that relate to those past lives in some way. Next, let's take a look at some self-reported stories of children's past life memories posted on an Ask Reddit thread. When my daughter was 3 and starting to talk clearer, she was talking to someone and, concerned, I walked into the bedroom and no one was there. Initially, I thought it was her playing with her toys. Days later, the same scenario, but this time I asked who she was talking to, and she replied, "Your grandma." I thought she meant my mom who had recently passed, so I showed a pic of her and asked, "Is this her?" "No, your grandma," was the reply. I found a picture of my grandma and she, with a big smile, said, "Yes, her." I was shocked since I don't have any pictures of my grandma displayed, and she died in 1991. My daughter was born in 2015. My youngest, 4 to 5, would tell me about how warm and cozy she was in my belly, and how cold and scary it was to be born, and how the hardest part was that she used to know everything, but now she doesn't know anything. I would give her space to talk. Her frustration at almost being able to remember everything was almost palpable. The following conversation happened between my wife and our youngest when she was 3 or 4. Daughter, I remember my old mommy. Wife, what? Daughter, like, I was born, and then I was really cold, but then I woke up and you were my new mommy, and laid her head on my wife. My youngest was born with complications. She was intubated and spent 2 weeks in the NICU, so there's that. Not me, but some of my grandma's siblings died in a house fire around the 60s or 70s. My mom's sister, around 15 to 25 at the time, was just talking with one of her cousins who was about 5, like 30 years ago, and the 5-year-old was really scared of fire and acted a lot like one of my grandma's sisters, Tony. Then one day when my aunt reached over to light a candle, the 5-year-old cousin said, "Isn't it funny how last time we were sisters, but now we're cousins?" It freaked my aunt right out, apparently. When my daughter was 3, she saw a large ship while we were on vacation at the beach and said, "That's like the one my parents before you died on." I said, "You had other parents before us?" She calmly went on to explain that I shouldn't worry. They were her parents a long time before my husband and I were, but the ship they were on broke apart and they are still at the bottom of the ocean. She then said when her before parents died, she and her sister Brunella had to be separated because no one could take them both. She said her sister went to live in Australia, but she stayed in Ireland. We live in the US. There are many more amazing comments on that post, so I'll leave the link in the description of this video if you'd like to check it out yourself. This next Reddit post isn't about a child remembering a past life, but it does tie in with the overall theme of children being more connected to the supernatural or paranormal aspects of reality, and it's pretty amazing. Here it is. We've all heard that children and animals can see things that we can't. They're more sensitive to the paranormal/supernatural side of things. I didn't really believe this at first, until my own kids were born. They've all had their own experiences, but this one is about my youngest daughter. I will call her Bella. My father-in-law was one of those people who begged for grandchildren. Every family get-together, it was always, "When are you all going to give me grandbabies?" Well, it happened, and he was a phenomenal grandfather. He was never too tired to play, no mess was too big, and he never said no. But life happened, and sadly he passed from a heart attack. My girls were 2 years old, and Bella was just 8 months old. It shattered us, even me, because he'd been in my life since I was 14. He was a second dad to me. It hit my 2-year-old pretty hard, but Bella, I thought, was too young to understand, obviously. Fast forward to Bella being a little over a year old. Every time I'd hold her, she'd look off into corners and walls where nothing was, and smile, wave, etc. I just thought she was being a baby doing weird things, but then she learned to talk. This is where it gets eerie. I'd hear her talking to herself when her sister would be nowhere around. I listened one day and heard, "I know you miss Rowdy, Papa, but Nana is taking care of him." Rowdy was his pet Shih Tzu. I walked in to ask her who she was talking to. She replied, "Papa Troy, he misses Rowdy. Oh, and he said to tell Nana happy anniversary." I knew she was trying to say anniversary because their anniversary was the next day. My mouth dropped. She didn't know that. She was too little. Over the years, Bella would talk about him working in the coal mines, the machines he worked on, his friends and their families, things she was not told about. Then another big incident where we were all freaked out. He wore a set of dog tags that he never took off. When my mother-in-law boxed up all his stuff, she misplaced them. She was so distraught over it. She babysat my girls one day and called me crying. Bella found his tags. I was confused. She explained that she was walking my girls around outside and her wedding ring on her finger started to feel like it was burning or tingling. She ignored this, but Bella said, "Papa is trying to tell you his tags fell into the vent in your bedroom." She went inside to look, and there they were. Bella is 6 now and barely remembers these things, but I think it's safe to say that she could see her Papa. That was a pretty incredible post. Again, I'll leave the link to that thread in the video description if you want to check it out yourself. After doing the research for this video and seeing how incredibly common it is for children to remember past lives or have some other connection to the other side, I'm now finding the whole idea of reincarnation pretty convincing. Obviously, these anecdotes alone aren't sufficient evidence to say for sure that reincarnation is real, as extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, but still, the significance of all these stories is hard to deny. Well, that's all I've got for today's video. Please like the video and leave a comment if you enjoyed it. And I've got lots more content on the way, so feel free to subscribe if that interests you. Anyway, thanks for watching.